right. Welcome back, everyone, to another great episode of The Human Role. So, this episode is very, very special to me. It is episode 50. I'm really excited that over the last few years, you guys have welcomed me into your home, and I've had many guests that have been willing and ready to be on and just talk about not only their business, but certain topics in the world that are really important to them. So, as we get in, of course, we are at the end of the year, but with this being the 50th episode and we're, wrapping up the year, I kept really asking myself, like, what does HR really come down to, right? And to me, the answer is really simple. So it is people, it's trust, it's more so gratitude. And so today I didn't want to focus on teaching a specific framework. It's really about just saying thank you, right? To the voices, to the stories, and the humans who made this year what it was for me, because it's a really special year. And to be able to still have my podcast going and still have you all send me kudos and thanks for speaking truth and realness out there and having like the guests on that have been on my podcast. It's just really been very, very enlightening, not only for me, but I know for many others. So I really wanted to focus on the power of people. That's really what resonates with me when we talk about HR, right? And I really want to go through what HR has taught me, not only through my career, but also through the people that I have met and how we can all make a difference, whether
Leading a growing business, it's like building a plane while flying it. Team building, decision making, and scaling all at once. At CPO Playbook, we get it. That's why our podcast, ranked in the top 10% worldwide, tackles the toughest leadership challenges with insights to help you lead smarter and grow faster. Tune into the CPO Playbook podcast because leadership doesn't come with a manual, but we're pretty close.
we see it or feel it or not. I think in past episodes, I definitely have even talked about just a simple, how are you? And how that goes a long way. So wanted to go through what we have talked about at least all year with my guests, but then also continuing to repeat just outside of focusing on people, especially from an HR stance in companies, really just building that heavy trust factor, which is really important, right? And critical for employees. And then just remaining grateful. I think this is a specific time, of course, it's the holiday season. So we talk a lot about gratitude in general now. We see a lot of commercials around it. And, Thanksgiving just ended. Now we're going into Christmas. But in our everyday lives, just remaining grateful and being able to make a difference. I mean, from the HR stance, let's not forget about the human aspect of things, right? Which is why my podcast is called The Human Role. Just continuing to remain grateful is really key and very critical to not only your own success in your HR roles, but also to the employees that work for these companies. And that is going to be what makes the company better and what keeps people being loyal and wanting to maintain their relationship with the company. I've also mentioned several times, this is really an employee market versus an employer market from what we're seeing. It always shifts back and forth on who has kind of like that top tier level of control, but really just wanting to make sure that in our HR seat, we are doing all that we can to be real and authentic and connect with our people, gain trust, gain loyalty, and keep our tenure strong with our companies and do all that we can to keep employees happy because they are the ones that are doing the work. So that's what I wanted to mainly stress today. And I have a lot of gratitude now on my own with it being my 50th episode. So thank you all for just being such a light for me, allowing me to share my light with you all, but also continuing to reach out to me, make your comments, like my posts and podcast episodes, and sending your good kudos and feedback, just because that definitely helps me and gives me the boost that I need to continue to keep going, right? We all need a little boost here and there. Speaking of just always needing a little boost, definitely want to also stress one thing that I live by nowadays is just progress over perfection, right? We just want to make sure through our careers, through systems, and then also just pure healing, even after there's been change to not only careers and systems, but even maybe even your personal life with what you're possibly experiencing, progress over perfection. We want to make sure we are continuing to take baby steps and moving forward and not necessarily focus on every single thing having to be perfect, because sometimes it's worth it to just put something out, fix a module, clean up a module, launch something in buckets, maybe per department, maybe a couple of employees, just kind of test the waters, just to make sure that you are making some type of progress. And I think a lot of times we can get caught up in our own world, I guess you can say, and kind of definitely get in our own head. And so we want to just make sure that we are taking step by step and continuing to grow. And eventually, perfection will come. But if you're a perfectionist like myself, you do have to tell yourself to put something out there. Sometimes I'm not 100% satisfied with every single episode, but it's better to just kind of keep rolling, right? And realize what was potentially wrong and how to fix it on a go forward basis. So, want to just also reiterate, as we're talking about the power of people and trusting and giving thanks and, having a lot of gratitude, I also want to kind of talk about certain things that have helped me along the way to hopefully have you add that to your buckets too and your thought processes too. And hopefully that helps you along the way. And look, that leads me to get into the episodes that we've talked about, and I'll focus on episodes for this year. But I mean, there's been a plethora of things. I had to get a list together just to remember all of the things that have happened this year. I mean, we've talked about the evolving landscape of HR and technology, right? And highlighted the discussion on future work and tech adoption and innovation, right? Tools that can help shape HR altogether. I mean, we've dabbed into emerging strong after a layoff and really shared some heartfelt thought processes on resilience and transitions and rebuilding your confidence, right? Which can be pretty tough for people after a layoff. We dived into the well being at work, right? Where we covered belonging and impactful well being initiatives and why C suite buy ins really matter. We've focused on like people centered leadership, even gone beyond the paycheck, compensation and retention, exploring non traditional benefits and retention strategies, and really just heavily focused on like the holistic HR impact, right? The human side of mergers. That was another big one, right? Focusing on integrating people, not just systems during merger and acquisitions. Really a heavy standout example of how HR empathy plus strategy really works and is very necessary. Definitely the CEO of Virgil HR and tapped into like their compliance part too, where we took a deep dive into the importance of compliance and real world leadership advice, and really helping with like useful illustrating, right? I think Virgil HR has a really good system on the differences between like the practical HR rigor, right, that we all experience that can be really tough. Got into MESTA. You guys remember MESTA, the Michigan Earned Sick Time Act that hit us unexpectedly earlier this year, and then had some other changes that came through on October 1st, right? So we dived into the legal and compliance insights with my specific attorney. So it was really a good contrast, I would say, to all of our cultural episodes to really get into new legal requirement that was coming and just making sure companies are staying up to speed. And we talked about the importance of like having an AI policy. So if you don't already have that in place, that was a heavy recommendation from Attorney James Reed. We dived into the employee experience revolution, right? And got into employee mobility in the workplace, right? Tying into modern HR ethos. So I think that was really also important, just because employees definitely are demanding more benefits, more flexibility, right? And we really want to make sure from an HR stance that we're staying on top of that as much as we possibly can. We had a lovely guest, right, that talked about simplifying the 401k, right? And getting into the breakdown of retirement and just basic planning for HR and payroll pros, and even educational clips, right, for your employees. And then we really this year really focused on technology to human resilience. We can't ignore the fact that AI is here, and we definitely need to keep up to speed with it and see how we can add our current expertise to these AI bots and how it can make our lives better, maybe save us some time throughout the day and week. And I know sometimes that that's really tough for people to wrap their brain around, but it's here. It's definitely not going anywhere. So I'm going to stress again for everyone to really pick up the HR technology space, right? And we want to make sure that we are overcoming all of that. We are transcenders consultants, by the way, that I run, but making sure that we are transcending over against all odds. And I'm just really dipping into the culture side of things. Let's not give up on the culture because that is really, really important. And just the human experience. Shout out to the human role, my own podcast. I'm just plugging myself now too. But yeah, but that's just the importance of our role and our experience and what we need to bring to companies and to our employee populations to make everyone feel comfortable. And I will say this across all 50 episodes over the last few years, this has been a brand new journey for me. And I was definitely reminded that HR isn't just systems, policies, or tech. I've mentioned that at least from the tech space, but it's definitely about people resilience and meaningful work and connection. So you will hear that in every conversation on my podcast, but also featured through these next few minutes as I have some clips from different episodes. It is really, really, really about just the connection and all of us being resilient and getting through situations that were so unexpected in our workforce, things that have even happened to ourselves. But really, all of the guests that I have ever had on, all of us are doing meaningful work. So I know that sometimes there's some unpopular opinions out there about HR and HR for the company, not for the people. There are really some solid HR people that are always there for the employee population. Sometimes we win the battles, sometimes we don't. Unfortunately, from an employee stance, you may not always see battles that we have fought behind closed doors. And so I just want to stress that HR is a very stressful job and we are all doing the best that we possibly can. And I just want everyone to continue on closing out the 2025, but as you get into 2026 and beyond, to remain grateful, continue being a trustworthy person, and to really just focus on your people, community, and connections because that is going to get you a very long way. So I am extremely grateful and really appreciative of you all just allowing me to share pieces of my journey with you. And I look forward to another amazing 2026. I have a lot of good things in the plans and the works and hoping to take things to the next level here. So thank you all so very much. Your support is beyond appreciated. And I hope that I can continue to be a light for you just as much as you all are a light for me. Take care.